everybody, James with Rowe-Thrush. Welcome to the Solution Selling Show. I'm James Thrush, and this is our weekly podcast that we put on for the Grainger sales force, where basically every week we bring on a different supplier partner of ours and we interview them live on LinkedIn and YouTube. Why we like to broadcast these live on LinkedIn and YouTube is if you catch us while we're live, you can actually type in questions and interact and engage with the supplier being interviewed and ask them questions right then and there to get to learn a little bit more about them. So this episode, I should say, we have Steve Sullivan with Rittal. So I'm going to bring him on now. So welcome, Steve. Welcome to the show.
James, thanks. Good to be with you again.
Yeah, glad to have you on once again. This is your second visit to our show. Appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your Friday afternoon to join us. So how are you doing today?
Well, things are great. Things are doing well. Looking forward to this. So, yeah, everything's
excellent.
Good.
You got any special plans for the weekend at all?
Yeah, there's some. Dayton has a great ballpark down there, and so we're going to go down and head down to the ballpark this weekend, and hopefully the weather holds out. But other than that, it's that and yard work. We've got a lot of rain lately, so we're just catching up on the yard work.
Yeah, I hear you. I have a vegetable garden that I do a lot of work with. It seems like every weekend I'm doing a lot of yard work. So yeah, I got stuff like that too. And I'm taking my wife and son to the airport. They're going on a trip to Paris for a week and a half or so. So I'm going to be doing away with them, and it'll be just my daughter and I for that period of time. So
you've been there not too recently, right?
That.
Weren't you there?
Yeah, we went in December, actually. Yeah. So my son enjoyed it so much, he said, "Can I go again?" And so we managed to do this just before he starts school. Unfortunately, my daughter starts school next week. So it's just going to be a mother-son trip, and it'll give my daughter and I some time to bond as well. So, it's all good. So again, thanks for joining us. Why don't you, for the people that haven't seen you before on our show, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and history and what it is that you do at Rittal.
Okay, sure. Like James mentioned, Steve Sullivan, manager of training and development here at Rittal. I've been here, it'll be 28 years in October. And so first 3 years were kind of production control, and then after that, I jumped into training, and I've been doing training ever since. And I also managed our trade shows and exhibits from about 2006 to 2008. And so that was a good experience, but I love training. And so responsible for a lot of the online content, our internal LMSs, our learning management systems. Got some YouTube videos on, how-to videos, little quick things, and try to help people out with our products and little hacks along the way that you might not pick up out of the instructions. So it keeps me busy.
Yeah, we actually share those YouTube videos off of the Rittal YouTube channel regularly on our LinkedIn company page. And it's funny because every now and then when we do those, we get a lot of comments from people saying, "Hey, Steve, good to see you. Great video there, Steve." Just
a fan
all
base.
Sorts of comments. Yeah, you have a fan base. So, that's great. So thank you for sharing that. 28 years, that's a long time. Looking forward to maybe having you on again in the years to come too. So
excellent. Yeah.
So last time we had you on, the question of the year was, what is your favorite movie and why? And your response was Black Hawk Down. Great movie. One of my favorites. Actually, I just watched it probably about a month ago or so on my lunch break. I watched it, over the course of, 2 days or so, 2 or 3 days, because it's kind of a long movie. Great movie choice, though. And this year's question, though, is what is your favorite band and or album and why?
I listen to a lot of music, pretty diverse. So I would say probably my favorite all-around artist, composer, keyboard, probably Elton John. But if I had to pick a group, I would say Genesis and a lot
Huh?
of the older stuff with Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins on drums, a lot of that. And so I think 2 years ago, we actually just saw Phil Collins and Genesis. His son's on drums now. So his son was on the drum kit. Phil was out front, of course, and they had I don't know that they called it a farewell tour, but it was, one of the last ones you think that you'll see. But oh, it was outstanding, just phenomenal. So I really like Genesis music.
So if you had to pick one though, because I don't mind if it's a solo person like Elton John, if you had to pick one of them, Elton John or Genesis, which one would it be?
I'm going to have to go with Elton John.
Elton
Yeah.
John. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great choice. And actually, there was that movie that they came out with a number of years ago. I started watching it. I got about halfway through, and something happened. With my family or something like that, and I had to stop it and attend to something else. And I never finished watching it actually. And it's always kind of been in the back of my mind that I got to finish watching that movie about his life and becoming
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen
the
that. Yeah, I've seen
musician. Yeah.
that.
It came out probably about 5 or 7 years ago, something like that. So
About the same
fairly
time
recent
that
movie.
they did the same thing with Freddie Mercury.
Yes.
Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the same time. Yeah, those are pretty interesting kind of depictions of their life, right? So it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the Freddie Mercury one, that was a really good one. I remember watching that with my wife. Really enjoyed that one a lot. I grew up listening to Queen all the time, and especially when Wayne's World came out, Bohemian Rhapsody was being played like every day, 50 times a day. So great. Well, thank you for providing us some more insight into Steve and your musical preferences. And thank you for the music recommendation. I will listen to some Elton John this weekend. So thank you for that. So why don't you do a little bit of an introduction of who Rittal is now? Tell us what it is that Rittal manufactures, and what types of solutions and services that they provide.
Sure. So Rittal is the largest enclosure manufacturer planet Earth, and I would say it's also fair to say manufacturer of climate control solutions. So that leads well into what we're talking about today. The company started in 1961. We've been in the United States since 1982, so we've been celebrating a lot of pretty big anniversaries lately. But they phenomenal engineering. Their headquarters is out of Herborn, Germany. Although we have manufacturing plants all over the world, I'm located in Urbana, Ohio, and so that's a manufacturing facility there. But we've got modification centers and distribution all over the United States, and again, manufacturing all over the world. But it's a privately held company, and matter of fact, our owner is going to pay us a visit here in a couple of weeks. Everybody's pretty excited and pumped up about that. But so not only just enclosures and climate control, but they do, power distribution. They're huge on the IT side. I mean, people probably are surrounded every day by Rittal enclosures in their data centers, and they don't know that it's Rittal because it says some of the largest IT OEM names in the business. So we do a pretty broad portfolio. We've got some really intelligent designs, things that are really in the portfolio, that are pretty amazing. Remote monitoring and management of climate control. We've got a lot of edge solutions that we're doing now. So one of the things I like about Rittal is how innovative the company is. I mean, I've been doing training for 25 years. And the thing that keeps me interested and engaged is that there's always something new to talk about, right? It's not the same old thing every day. We're always pushing the envelope, doing something new. So I love that. I think they're a phenomenal company, phenomenal engineering. And so that's a little bit about, what Rittal is and where we're going, just always on the edge of innovation, I think, in our industry for sure.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that brief introduction of Rittal. We're going to get a little bit more into the products and solutions on the show. But before we do that, if you scan the QR code down below, We have a lot of resources available to you there. We have, I think, 4 websites this time that you can go to: Grainger.com and all of Rittal's product, their YouTube channel, other social medias, as well as their website. So scan that QR code to learn more about Rittal. Now, getting into the types of customers, what types of customers would be interested in Rittal products?
Hey, James, what's interesting today is these areas are blending, right? You have these areas that maybe in the past used to be very distinctly industrial, and within that, you've got a lot of verticals like food and beverage, oil and gas, petrochemical, pharmaceutical, just manufacturing, aerospace, military. There's a lot of applications that fall under industrial, and then you also have you've got your solutions on the IT side, and then on the IT side, you're looking at things like large data centers. You're looking at things like, okay, right on this, a great example of an edge solution. So everybody's familiar with the cloud, and what we're seeing now is Ethernet to plant floor, or bringing that equipment closer to the point of use to reduce latency. And you almost need today in those types of environments a well-sealed cabinet, but then also climate control to take care of the heat concerns that are generated by the equipment. And so this is, that merging of technologies in even untraditional areas now where you're putting IT gear allows us to expand into a lot more areas where maybe we're not as divided as we were in the past of this is an industrial application and this is an IT application. So it's really, it's just opened up. And I would say anybody that's putting electronics in an enclosure because they give off heat needs to consider cooling.
Well, yeah, those enclosures, they can get very hot because you have a lot of electrical components housed within it, and it's enclosed, area, so that heat needs somewhere to go. So thank you for going through that. And that it kind of leads on to the next question, which I guess we kind of already answered, but why would somebody want to buy air-conditioned enclosures?
So I think that there's, if we look at the biggest sellers in climate control, on one side you have fan solutions, and on the other side it's a product that generates its own cooling. And so by far, the market is big purchasers of fans and then air conditioners, but they're used in the opposite ends of the spectrum. So something like an air conditioner you want to use when that ambient temperature is too hot to bring into the cabinet, and you have to generate their own cooling, because in the end, what an air conditioner is doing is it's removing the heat in the cabinet, it's removing humidity, stripping out the humidity, and then also these are closed loop systems, so it's not allowing any contaminants from outside into the enclosure. So to your point, if you have an enclosure that's well designed and it's designed to keep out dirt and dust and other contaminants, it also does a good job of keeping things in, like heat. And so then you need to get rid of that, because the controls are going to be sensitive to the heat, and heat causes them to act erratically. It causes them to fail. And so that we want to ensure, and so I thought of this the other day, you want to ensure with an E, right? You want to ensure that you are doing your due diligence and protecting the controls and ensuring the lifetime of the components, so that climate control becomes almost cheap insurance with an I, right? Cheap insurance, and that you're protecting the gear and ensuring your uptime, you're ensuring your revenue generation by your business being up, and you're just taking care of the equipment that's inside the enclosure. So if it's the more that you seal it up and the more that you contain it, the more that it also holds in heat.
Great. Now, what are some of the benefits of buying such an enclosure?
So in the end, like I said, the two things is lifetime of the controls, and it's the switch gear, it's the control gear, it's anything else that you're putting in there. So it's to provide a stable environment, because things like temperature swings can also cause problems with the electronics. If you look at the biggest issues in controls and cabinets, it's heat by about 57%. You're looking at humidity, you're looking at dirt, dust, and then vibration. And so we need solutions that control that. And so it's going to ensure the life of the controls. It's going to ensure the uptime availability and your operational readiness, if you will. And then those are kind of the basics. And if you look at, okay, what else would be like nice to have now? So nice to have would be things like, I want to save money, right? Energy efficiency in my design or reduction of maintenance costs. And then how can you do that? Rittal several years ago kind of pooled the industry and we said, hey, in our next generation air conditioner that we're going to make, what do you guys want? What do you want to see in the industry? Number one was energy efficiency. Create something that saves us money. The next thing, in no particular order, kind of was like, make it easy to install, make it easy to handle. And then the last one was, believe it or not, multi-voltage. So give me something that I don't have to worry about just capacity and voltage, right? Make it multi-voltage. And so Rittal has solutions now in Bluey Plus S air conditioners that are true multi-voltage. You got to look to the capacity, but basically they can run on, 115 single phase all the way to 3-phase 480. And so this is just really intelligent designs that are significant. And then we can talk about energy savings later, but those are the nice to haves, right? So you've got what you got to do. You got to control the temperature, and then you want to make sure that you're doing that properly, maintaining operational readiness. And then other than that, and preserving the control life. And then secondly, what are the nice to haves? And certainly everybody says, save me money.
Now, with the multi-voltage, that would take what would normally be a family of 4 or 5 SKUs, maybe more, for all the different voltage ratings. And would that narrow it down to just one SKU that can handle all the different voltages, or do you have a couple of products, that are broken down?
Yeah. So if you look at the capacity range of the air conditioners, so if you kind of look to the middle, if you get away from the extremes, like the highest end and then the lowest end on capacity, the ones right in the middle are true multi-voltage through the entire capacity. So 115 single all the way up to 480 3-phase, right? So it's taking the incoming current, changing it over to DC for what's inside. So you're absolutely right. And this is a huge benefit to maybe a stocking distributor. And that, guess what? Instead of stocking by capacity and then multiple voltages, and then I have to go to the next capacity and multiple voltages. So you're right. You're reducing your SKUs in some cases by 2/3 of a reduction. And then if you're an OEM, maybe you don't even worry about where it's going, because guess what? Wherever they plug it in the world, it's going to run. So yeah, it's a pretty cool stuff just on the power side.
Excellent. I love to hear all of that. The sustainability features, cost savings, productivity, for ease of installation, and then also just ease of selection by, instead of having this huge breadth family of products, you have it narrowed down with that multi-voltage. So excellent to hear all of that. So when it comes to having an AC enclosure, will that help increase the life of electrical components that are housed within the inside of it?
So I like this question because I'm going to kind of address it a different way. So, the controls have a service life. They're designed for X amount of, I guess service life is, a good term for that. So it will not increase the service life, but it also helps. So the climate control helps not to shorten it, right? And if you look at this chart, this is just a truism, right? This is just physics, and is basically saying on the vertical axis we have percent of service life, and then on the bottom axis you've got a change, and it says K Celsius. There's still incremental degrees, but this is saying from your maximum operating point, or the maximum operating temperature of that component, especially semiconductors, based on the percent increase in heat, what happens to that service life? And so you can see the rule here that says for every 10 degrees C or 18 degrees Fahrenheit above the max operating temperature of the electronic component, the service life is halved. So if you start out and we're at 0 here, you're getting 100% service life, And look, everything in climate control, in my opinion, is kind of, it depends. So think of terms of our cars. If you change the oil, if your tires are properly inflated, you take care of it, you do your regular maintenance, you take care of it when you hear something that doesn't sound right. It's going to last you as advertised. It'll last you a nice long time. If you don't take care of it, you're not going to see that service life out of it. And basically electronics and controls are the same kind of way. They need a nice stable environment, and they need to have something that is within their operational range. And so what happens here is we see that as the temperature starts to climb and we get up to that 10 degrees C, which is 18 degrees Fahrenheit above the max operating temperature, now we've dropped down to half. So if we thought we were getting 10 years of service life out of a control, now we're at 5 years. And electronics don't heal, right? So it only gets worse every time we abuse that. And then you see the red line, which is the failure rate. So this is what we're trying to protect against. And this is kind of like the due diligence or the insurance of having climate control, is that it addresses this, right? It takes care of and tries to ensure that this does not occur. Because everything that you're putting in there is going to have a spec sheet that says, hey, this is either the required airflow or this is the temperature that needs to be maintained. And you just need to be cognizant of, you get too much higher above that. So here's something that people don't understand really, because they think in terms of their own comfort. Industrial controls are comfortable in the range of 90 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's kind of the sweet spot for them. We tend to think that it's much cooler than that because we relate it to how we feel, but that's not so for electronics. So that's kind of the sweet spot where they need to be. And the spec sheets will tell you that on those controls.
You're speaking my language when you brought up the car and maintaining and all that. I was just like, that's my world, or at least it used to be. So
your motorcycle, right? Yeah.
Well, I used to be a mechanic too, so I did that for 11 years actually. So yeah, I agree with you on that part, and it only makes sense that with these electrical components, you keep them at that sweet spot for temperature, that they're going to last a lot longer, and you'll have some big cost savings that you could bring to your customers too because of that. So that's excellent. Thank you for going through all of that. Now, when it comes to these types of enclosures, do they help make the work environment a safer work environment?
So I think there's two ways to think about that, in my opinion. One is that there's an indirect safety feature. So if the enclosure and the climate control device, let's say that it's a well-made air conditioner and it's doing what it's supposed to do, you're not calling out maintenance, right? So if there's a problem and the controls or the line goes down or whatever, you have some kind of failure, then maintenance has to come out. Now you have things like, possibly arc flash or electrocution hazards. You got to look at stuff like lockout tagout procedures. There may be also some other physical barrier or physical issues to think about from a maintenance perspective. And so, when you're engaging maintenance and these people are working around these kinds of controls and electricity, certainly there are hazards. So if we can prevent that, that's a safer environment. The other thing too is, I think, for example, the Rittal air conditioners, we have something inside of the units called internal condensate evaporators. And so it's an active element that's inside of the air conditioner. We talked about a natural byproduct or a effect of a cooling product is condensation. And so as that condensation drips down into this collection box, it heats up and it'll cook off 100 milliliters an hour. The other side of that fact is if people don't have that built into their units, then they're just discharging the water through a drain tube into some type of a collection device. Now, is that the collection device getting emptied routinely? And especially
spilling over,
right? And because then the result is you're going to have water on the floor, right? So there's slip hazards, there's other electrical issues with that. There's a lot of issues with water on a plant floor. Try to stop a forklift on a wet floor when it's got the nice smooth ball tires, right? It's not going to happen. So there's a lot of issues possibly. So that's, I think there's an indirect answer certainly about that. And then properly discharging water and having a safe design goes a long way too.
Now, I remember last season when we had you on, you had a picture of an enclosure that you actually saw on a plant floor where they had cardboard holding holding an actual window unit from for a house up to this enclosure, and water was dripping on the ground. I think they had an extension cord, not to mention you're using a home AC unit and you're using cardboard to like do a shroud, if I remember correctly,
Right.
or something like that. So you have that as far as safety too. Somebody hacking something together to make it cool. You have something that is professionally made for that task.
Absolutely. And we got some business out of that call. That was a panic situation, but you're absolutely right. They had the AC unit. They took out of the shop floorman's, shop, and they took it out of his window and they put it on a little um, step stool of something like that. Right. And you're right. I'd forgotten about the extension cord going clear down the length of the enclosure and then just
Yeah.
the taped over. It was but that's what they did to maintain production. So certainly, we very quickly got a call to get out there and take care of the situation. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great picture though. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so big savings when it comes to people, doing a makeshift, solution, So keep your eyes peeled for things like that. Extension cords, water, window units up to electrical enclosures. Um, Now, when it comes to customers and having an AC enclosure, what are some popular accessories that they should consider when doing these types of products?
So I think there's probably three big ones that are more of a best practice, right? So on the top row there, third one to the right is a door switch. So what a door switch does, when that AC unit's on and it hits, so there's different levels of operation of an AC unit. You've got your evaporator fan, you've got your condenser fan, you've got your condenser. And so depending on the temperature in there, are they all running at the same time? Do you only have a certain fan running and not others? But the idea is that when a maintenance or somebody opens the enclosure door, the door switch signals the air conditioner and says, okay, the door is open. You need to go offline. Now, obviously that can be defeated, but by anybody that wants to make sure that that AC is running while they're working in front of it. But just think about this though: you're wasting electricity, and then also it's going to be trying to cool the entire plant, and so it's going to be generating a lot of condensation. And what's going to happen with that water? So the door switch just signals the AC unit to shut down, and then the door closes, and then it turns back on. So that's a best practice. Filters and understanding the environments that the AC unit will be deployed in, because you have metal filters that are good in oily environments, but they're not good in fine particulate. And then you can have disposable or polyurethane filters that are disposable, that are good in most environments, but not oil, because then they become saturated. And so understanding which filters to use, and understand that with an AC unit, the only thing you're protecting with the filter is that outside or external circuit, your condenser cycle. You're not filtering anything that will ever get into the enclosure, because it's a closed loop system. So that sometimes people get confused on what the purpose of the filter is, and it's just to protect that outside circuit. But what Rittal does is we also have a feature called a nano coating on our condenser coils, and then think of Teflon on a frying pan. So it doesn't allow dirt and dust to stick. And so it just blows right on through. And another analogy I use is we all went through COVID. Think about what we felt like when we all had the masks on. It restricts your breathing. It makes you work harder. You're burning more calories. You're wasting, you're burning energy. Well, same thing with an AC unit. If the filter material is getting clogged, right, it restricts the breathing. And so the unit's running longer, it's running harder, you're wasting electricity. So this goes in an amazing way to ensure proper airflow through the units with the use of these nano coatings. And so the filters are certainly best practice. If I look at some of these other ones, they're the IoT interface module at the top left corner is a device that we have that allows me to remotely monitor and manage units. in the field. And I can do it because this gets an IP address. I love this little device. You can do that. You can do air conditioners plus about 32 different sensors. Water collection bottles. You have temperature probes. So if I've got a hot spot in the panel, typically the air conditioner takes the sensor at the top where the hot air rises, and that's the mode of control for the air conditioner on cooling. But I could set that to the return air too. I can also set it to the probe, so I could snake a probe along the panel and take it to a hot spot to make sure that if I've got a sensitive component, that it's always getting the proper cooling. So lots of different accessories for those. Those are the main ones, including some apps. So we have something called Rittal Service and Scan. That's a phenomenal app on your phone that you can scan the side of the air conditioners. You can pull up on the QR codes like you were showing. You can do all the technical data on the AC units. You can pull up energy efficiency ratios. You can pull up spare parts. Lots of great information just by scanning. So you're in the field. You've got everything on your phone. You don't have to wait and try to get a hold of somebody or go to a website and look up a bunch of spare parts. It's right there on your phone.
Yeah, I remember doing sharing a YouTube video. I think it was one with you too, talking about that app, and we shared it on LinkedIn. Within the last year or so, and I didn't know that you guys even had that app. So really cool resource there too. So check out that Rittal app or talk to your customers about it. And I also love the nano coating that you're talking about. And why I say that is the other day I was outside doing some yard work, and I was looking at my AC unit outside, and I could see the fins have a nice layer of pollen and dirt and other debris that are just floating in the air. It doesn't just slide right off; it collects on it. So it made me say, "Oh, I need to take the shop vac out and clean that up so that it cools
Because
properly."
that debris will restrict the proper thermal transfer, right, to get rid of that. So you're exactly right, and that's part of the maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. Now we do have a question. Mark Winters is asking, does Rittal offer any specific products for harsh environments such as oil and gas?
Great questions. So I think we've got a couple solutions. We've got NEMA 4X, and when I say NEMA 4, I mean UL as well. But we've got some 4X applications, and then we've also got another version within our portfolio we call it on our website the chemical version. The United States typically uses the term conformally coated, and so these are units that have a certain environmental coating on the outside, maybe a polyurethane varnish, and they're good for certain types of acidic or corrosive environments. And then what we do too is we take the control mechanism and we place it inside, so it's on the back of the unit, right? Industrial applications and most other ones, the control where you're doing your parameters and you're seeing the temperature readings, etc., is on the outside. But in situations like that, we actually reverse it and we protect the controls and the power connection by putting it inside the enclosure, so it's on the back of the unit. So, depending on whether you're talking about corrosivity on the AC unit itself or other types of protection, we certainly have solutions for those environments.
Excellent. Now, let's say an account manager is walking into a customer facility. How do they determine that there's an opportunity for air-conditioned enclosures?
I think that, like what you just said, if they're walking in, so that's awesome because they've already got an appointment, right? They're already in there. So, we mentioned one, which was kind of tongue-in-cheek, very obvious. We've got a long extension cord, this thing's sitting around cardboard, and, that jumps out at you. We would encourage people to maybe do a walkthrough. You don't have to call it a thermal audit. I mean, we do those as well. Sometimes we even walk in with FLIR guns and do, temperature evaluations inside of a cabinet if it doesn't have climate control on there. But you want to look for, kinds of obvious things like we talked about earlier. Is there water? Is there a pool of water under the cabinet where it might not be sealed properly? That is another reason that causes excessive water, other than a very low temperature inside, maybe much cooler than it needs to be in the cabinet. You're looking at things like, is there other climate control on there that may be damaged? Do you see flashing codes or lights? Not maybe just a Rittal off, but there's other things out there, right? There's other enclosures out there that may be causing issues. And so an audit's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to, engage a customer that maybe not using climate control in a certain enclosure and say, look, we've got this thermal sizing software that we can use that's right on our website. And if you don't mind, let me take 5 minutes, 3 minutes when you get pretty good at it, but let me take 5 minutes and just run this calculation for you. And it may tell you that you need climate control, but it also will just show you what your heat loss is and how much heat's in the enclosure. And then we can look at, is this a worst case scenario? How much hotter could it possibly get, that we might need to protect against? And so somebody might say, well, wow, it's about 140 in that enclosure and I don't have any climate control. I probably should do something about that, because certain drives, certain equipment starts to act kind of funny or erratically around certain temperatures. And so if you kind of know what that temperature is, you might be able to protect against that. Again, kind of the whole insurance thing that we were talking about. So I think just kind of looking at some obvious, then maybe not so obvious, just by asking questions.
Now, I may have kind of jumped the gun by switching slides, but you mentioned, are there any warning indicator lights or anything like that? And I remember when I was going through this presentation that you sent me, that some of your cabinets and AC units, they actually have color-coded LED lights, and I just figured I'd pull it up. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So the one that we're looking at here is the newer Bluey Plus S. And so the S is for the smaller capacities. And so these are in the range of 300 watts up to 1,000 watt cooling units. What I really like about these is there's a default out of the box, which the LED bar on the front is just white. But you can change it to like a hot pink. You can do green. You can do blue. It can be off if you don't want that at all. And those are just colors that would be on all the time. So if you've got a company color that you like, or you just want to color code an aisle, or, holidays, make it certain color for Christmas, whatever you want to do, you can do that. And then in the event of a warning or an alarm, you can see here on the right, the yellow will, and it doesn't just turn color, it actually strobes. Like you said, it actually kind of, and it'll kind of glow. It's a really cool feature to grab your attention to say, hey, there's an issue here. And and that's if you're locally on the floor. Again, remember, we've got these remote monitoring and management devices, but even within here, this grabs your attention and this tells you that there's an issue. Some of the other units, you will have a very clear indicator on the Bluey Plus line where the display alternates between showing what the internal temperature is and then what the alarm condition is, and it shows up in plain text. Bluey series flashes the internal temperature and a code, and so you have to go to the instructions for the code. What I love about this series here, the Bluey Plus S, when you use the app, you can communicate with the AC unit, and then in the event of an alarm or a warning, not only does it tell you in plain text exactly what is wrong, it actually suggests troubleshooting all from the app. This is awesome. This is the coolest thing. So yeah, you can change colors. And you can do a whole drop down of all the parameters that you want to change, and it's just pushing your, it's just your phone and send, and that's it. It's so fast and so convenient. It's really neat. I just love this.
And these Bluey Plus products, you mentioned that they're fairly new, but we do have these units loaded into Grainger with SKUs. So Grainger account managers, please reach out to myself or Dennis, who I'll pop up his contact info. He's the national account manager at Rittal. Reach out to either one of us, if you want to know what SKUs are available under that Bluey Plus. Now, is there any other features that you want to talk about regarding Bluey Plus, and should I back up at all? We're kind of coming up on time, so
yeah. I just think probably the most important thing to mention, and if you go back maybe a slide or two,
okay,
because basically the technology, that's fine right there. Those technologies are going to be pretty much the same. So in addition, so remember the number one thing that people wanted in the next generation unit was save me money, energy efficiency, right?
Yep.
These units right here, on average, we're talking about a 75% energy savings.
Wow.
Nothing else out there in the market even comes close. This is due to a patented technology that Rittal has. So we're using two technologies that aren't necessarily novel, but the combination of them is in the same cooling unit. So we're taking heat pipe technology and we're taking compressor-based cooling, merging them together in the same product. And this allows us, and again, it always depends, right? Depends on your environment, depends on a lot of different variables, but this is on average.
Yeah.
And so it runs between heat pipe mode and your typical compressor-based cooling. And so we're seeing averages of 75% energy savings. That's huge. And the refrigerants that we're using, and again, these are speed controlled fans. They're EC fans, so electrically commutated fans. They're saving 30% over a standard fan anyway. The other thing about our climate control is it mounts on anything out there, any flat sheet steel. It doesn't have to go just on a Rittal cabinet. It can go on anything that's out there. And we really do a phenomenal job of trying to save people money, right? Building the best products that are out there for energy efficiency. We even have SEER calculators, so seasonal energy efficiency, ROI calculators, all those kinds of tools, plus the sizing tools. But I think the biggest thing about here for sure is the energy savings at a phenomenal amount. And when you were talking about sustainability, if people are working on programs or grant monies or new constructions or anything where they have to qualify for things like sustainability or green programs or showing that you're incorporating those products, we've got it. And we've got it to a phenomenal rate within our cooling line as well.
Awesome. And you mentioned basically what the next question was going to be, and that's, what types of resources do you guys have available? So we've already talked about the app that they have. That's a great resource. And you mentioned that you have some other I can't remember what it was, but like a savings calculator or something like that.
Yeah, so we have some ROI calculators, but I'll tell you one that's very convenient that you can get right off of our website. If you just go to rittal.us and then go to configuration and just drop down the page to climate control, you'll see something called Therm, and I believe the current version is 6.7. In this, you can use this for any enclosure that's out there. If it's got dimensions of height, width, and depth, you can use it to figure out not only what the heat loss is inside of there, it'll give you that, but it also gives you a Rittal solution. And so it's got a phenomenal library in it. There's other sizing programs out there, but I'm not aware of anybody else that has this very extensive library of manufacturers. And I mean, we're basically tapping into databases from a lot of these guys that are allowing us to do that with them. The backbone of it is ePlan, of course, but this is something that extensive library. There's 3 different ways to calculate the internal heat loss, and so anybody can use that to figure out what's going on inside their enclosures.
Great. And like Steve said, you could go to the Rittal website. You could do that by scanning the QR code down below. We have multiple websites that'll take you to Rittal's website. Home website is one of them too. So, with that, I don't really have much else to ask you. Do you have any final words that you want to say to everybody?
Oh, just just check out the tools. Use the tools. There's a lot of configuration tools that we're putting out there that are, you want to say the word free to the public, but it's just right on the website, so anybody can use them. But they're really smart tools. They're very convenient to use, and I would just say, when you're looking at things like sustainability, you're looking at energy savings, you're looking at the things that are really mattering and adding up more and more today that people are asking for. I mean, I think we've done a great job of the technologies that we're putting in place and certainly addressing those needs. So everybody wants to save money, and this is one way that you can do it and protect the controls that are in the cabinets and save your own revenue and keep that uptime.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all of that. And for anybody watching, our next solution selling show will be next Friday, August 18th, and we'll be interviewing Essex Electronics, and we'll be getting into the world of access control devices. So keypad readers, card readers, things like that. And they have a really cool, innovative new access control device that they just came out with. So make sure you join us next Friday at 2 o'clock Central Time so that you can check out that interview about access control. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the music recommendation. It's been a long time since I've listened to some Elton John, so I'm looking forward to rocking out to some Elton John. Actually, I got to say, my wife, the last surrogacy that she had, it was the baby was delivered C-section, and they were playing music. And when he was born, Rocket Man was playing. Awesome. And what's funny about that is the parents of the child, they weren't there in the hospital. They were down in Chicago at the time, and they were late. And I said, well, it's because this baby, Lucas is his name, he just couldn't wait to get out into the world. He's our little Rocket Man. So my nickname for Lucas is Rocket Man. So I'll definitely be listening to some Elton John this weekend. So thank you for that.
Can't go wrong with Yellow Brick Road.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve. And for everybody watching, here is the contact information for both myself as well as Dennis Kletter, who is the National Account Manager at Rittal. So please feel free to reach out to either one of us if you want to know more information about Rittal and engaging with your customers, Granger. So again, Steve, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Have a great one too.